Hello, and welcome back to A New Pace. I'm Leslie, and I am an artist and an art therapist and creativity coach. And today I'm going to talk to you about messages from the past because of an experience that I had recently, a past life meditation. And it was something that I wasn't sure about when I faced this experience. And it just felt so compelling, and the messages feel so compelling that I can't but not share this with you. So, sometime back in February, so a few months ago, I went on a retreat. And during the retreat, there were lots of things that really nurturing self care, lots of times when we were managing energy levels with like sound baths and with kind of some NLP as well to really focus on our goals, and some meditations. And one of the meditations in hypnosis was themed around past life meditation. Now, my understanding from the host was that there's such things as the past life meditation, which can be done in a group and that's more generalized. And then there's a past life regression hypnosis meditation, which is aimed to be done as an individual. So that can be more tailored and much more focused based on that clinician knowing the person or answering some questions and maybe guiding them to certain things, or to inviting them to ask certain questions of them, which I'm not sure how that be. I mean, the way that I've described it then sounds like that's quite directive, and that could influence how things are. But I think ultimately what that means is that it would be much deeper and much more personalized experience. So when I was approaching this, I had my blankets and I had my poncho, like a hoodie oodie thing. I always call it poncho, and thick socks, and super, super cozy. And I was just set out just to have a really nice, cozy, relaxing time because I wasn't sure how much I believed. And in the past, as I've grown up, I've had lots of conversations about, you know, about life, whether past lives exist, whether all of these sorts of things. But I don't really have a set belief around this. And actually, I'm always open to suggestion, always open to new discoveries. So when I set out off, starting on the past life meditation, I didn't really expect very much to happen. And until sort of quite far into it, I was kind of really doubting whether anything would happen. But let me tell you how this worked. So one of the key things that I think happens in a lot of meditations and hypnosis is that deep relaxation, deep relaxation, where I suppose the purpose is to connect with your subconscious mind. So get out of your head and into your heart and into your deeper rooted stuff. And it feels very woo woo, but actually a lot more people talk in this way nowadays. So getting out of what's going on in the present and getting into that subconscious mind and getting into something that's really, really deep and relaxing. So we were doing this and we were counting down, and he had a very, very calming voice, and I wouldn't expect anything less. And there was a point where we were counting down and walking down steps, and there was a real sort of 10, you're walking down the steps, 9, you take the next step, and it's just really relaxing. And then we were guided to walk across this field, and it was lovely, and it was just this field. And at this point I was thinking, oh, it's fine, nothing's gonna happen, maybe I should just use my imagination. Maybe this is an opportunity to imagine something to make this fun. And because I wasn't really sure anything would happen, or if it did happen, I was thinking maybe this is my imagination coming up with something that could be quite interesting. And whether or not it's true, it wouldn't matter. So I was convinced that nothing really was going to happen. And in a way, I was a bit disappointed that it might not. So in any case, we were walking across this field. This is in my mind. And we were guided to walk into this hut. like a shed, like a little building, and I saw this as a really rough, old building. It was quite overgrown around the edges, lots and lots of plants. I remember seeing poppies, I think, although I might have made that up to link with the story. And our mind does weird things like that. And then I walked in, and what we were invited to do is to look around, to really look around and discover what we could find. So one of the first things that I saw was a book, just like a book. I don't know whether it was, I didn't actually open it, but I don't know whether it, or I can't remember opening it. I don't know whether it was a writing book or a reading. No, I think it was either writing for me to write in or a sketchbook for me to draw in. I don't remember it being like a reading book, something that I would read and take information from. It was more about writing information and drawing information down. So I remember seeing that and thinking, oh, that's really nice, because I'm an artist, and that's maybe what's happening with that is that the symbol from this and the message from this is do more art. So it's like, right, that's a brilliant message. I love that. I'm happy with that. Right, something's happened, that's fine. And then I looked around again and I saw like this giant like gem, purple gem. And it just kind of really shined, and it was kind of, it was just, and I don't know what that meant, but that felt really interesting. It felt like really quite royal, quite like jeweled. And part of me was feeling a bit strange, because I was consciously, part of my mind, I was really immersed in this, but I also felt like and I was very tuned into this, but a tiny part of me knew that I was still in the room with the other people. So part of me had this imagined sense that they were, or felt sense that the other people that were doing the group meditation with me were in that shed with me, in some way, looking at different objects or going in at different times and things. But I had a felt sense that we were together. So I don't think I was completely switched off. I think our brains work in ways where there's just different parts of our mind and our subconscious mind that becomes more dominant at different times. So I was conscious of that. And then I saw what I could really tell was a gas mask. And it just, a bit like the sort of World War II gas masks. And it struck to me that because I was wondering, well, or maybe I wonder if this was that's part of my past life experience. Maybe there's something about the war. Maybe there's an experience of that being around the war. And then as I just turned, and there was a little boy who seemed to be maybe about 5 years old, and I'd envisaged him just like in a little school uniform type thing. So he was really little, and it made me kind of think that, oh, actually, like there's people around and things. How do we go on? It feels like I'm kind of trying to capture this in a way that helps you to understand, which it feels like I'm attempting to explain this to you in a way that you might understand, whilst also trying to be as authentic and genuine to the experience and how I experienced it. So some of this will be trying to make sense of it as I go along, whereas at the time I was just very immersed in it. And the next minute, I was in a cave. I was literally transported to this cave. Think back, way, way, way back. And I found myself drawing on the walls like this, just like with stones and sticks, and drawing on the floor in the mud and the sand. And it was like, oh, there was an urgency. I needed to do this. There was some sort of thing going on there. And then I had a vision of myself, either in the first person stepping into myself, or looking on. No, I think I had stepped into myself as like a bit of a leader type person, like this cave woman wearing a big fur coat, wearing her hoodie, like a big hood, big fur coat, and ironically I was wearing my poncho, so I probably should have worn that just now while I'm talking. Big hood, all cozy, but very empowering. And this version of me, if this is true, or what I imagined or hypnotized to experience, what I experienced, whatever it was a me that was leading on something, that was calling people in, that was helping people, that was encouraging people to connect with each other. I was creative, I was like leading, and it was very nurturing, and it felt very much like that was a calling, and it was necessary, and absolutely necessary. And I remember there being a big fire in the middle of this big circle, and I remember dancing, and other people were dancing. There was a real energy about this, a real rawness, like a real rawness and a real connectedness and a real sort of genuineness, and that communication, that expression, and that kind of supporting people to be like, to be present and solid and grounded and really connected to the earth. So this was a huge part of it, and I have no idea how long in real time I was there in my meditation, but I know for sure that this has been something that's like really stuck with me. So then Dan, who is it's from Integratus, the company that led this retreat, and Dan then guided us to come back, and he gave a message of leave your past life behind, or something like that, and make sure that nobody's following you. So if there's any people, you need to make sure that they're following you. And just at that moment, I saw the little boy, and he was walking behind me. And he says, oh, make sure no one's following you. And I had to make a point of waving goodbye to this little boy. And it was so interesting, because had that facilitator not mentioned that, I might have brought him back. He might have come back with me in some way, or he might have walked off somewhere. I don't know. But I had to deliberately tell him to stay and say, you stay, don't cross over this bridge, stay behind the shed. And then we crossed over the field and everything. And then we were slowly guided to wake up and come back into the present moment. And I just felt enormously emotional in a very liberating and free and happy way, in a way that like felt like really grounding. But then like the tears, so there were some tears, and not for too long, but some tears came, and it felt like sort of like a release. And that release comes with having that realization that this is my purpose, this is my calling. And because of being an artist, and having been a teacher, being an art therapist, it's something that I've constantly been grappling with and constantly coming back to. And some doubts, lots of times when I've had doubts as to like what my next step would be, or how to develop things, and how to be. But then lots of pressure to be doing things, to be taking action and do. Whereas the experience of my past life, me, was a much more grounded, solid, quite badass woman, really, like pretty out there, and pretty much like She knew what she was there for. She was there to lead, she was there to support, she was there to nurture and be creative and create with people. And so actually that was my message, and that was my sense of a nudge, really, that giving you a nudge. So sometimes when we feel that fire in our bellies, sometimes we can feel that like there's a fire burning inside you, and sometimes it's kind of just flickering, and sometimes it goes out, but actually it's always there. And there's certain experiences that make our fires burn like hotter and brighter, and actually so important to be able to respond to that, to be able to nurture that, and not just let our flames burn out. So these kind of parallel things really fitted and really aligned. So because I was crying at the end, people were really like coming up to me, "Are you all right? Are you all right?" It's like, well, yeah, I'm fine. I can handle some tears. It was just a big thing. And I feel like it was big because I wasn't expecting anything to happen. I absolutely wasn't expecting anything to happen. I thought, if anything, I might see something that could feel quite generalized. But anyway, this had a real profound impact on me. And I remember thinking that there was a little boy, and it made me wonder whether, as a past life experience, whether I was his mother in the past. So I'm not a mum now. I don't have any children. I'm unable to have children. Like lots of things about circumstances that have sent me that way. But then equally, like there's always been sort of a nourishing, nurturing part of me that actually maybe wanted to help people. So it's interesting to think that perhaps I was his mother, or perhaps this little boy was an evacuee and I was maybe his family that he was being looked after by during the war. Perhaps, I don't know. But that was a really nice thing to hold on to, a really nice addition to that experience, and an extra layer. So all in all, that made me feel that, right, I need to step into this identity more and embody this and work out what my next steps would be if I was to really embrace that identity without all of the fluff of modern day life. And one of the things that I was lucky enough to be involved with and to do really has anchored in that experience and that identity. And of course, I will be talking to you about that. So this was a workshop that I went to with fellow art therapists, with a whole load of, I think there were about 10 art therapists, like who were like working with children and families. It was one of these specialist interest CPD, continuing professional development sessions. And the workshop was about doll making. So I made a doll, and so did everyone else. Everyone made something that was different to each other. And what we weren't giving them much instruction. We were just giving some background information about how dolls came about and how they're useful. And because we're all fellow art therapists, we all had a sense as to what sort of things, how we might understand that to us. And what I decided that I would do is I intentionally set about making something that would embody the past self me. And even before we got there, I had this intention of using it to embody a certain identity for me. So if I were to describe how this was made, we've got sticks underneath as the base layer, and then there's clay at the bottom to make the little feet, and then there's some pipe cleaners in the arms, and then the arms move, which originally I had sticks for the arms and I took them off because they didn't move. And then we've got wool wrapped around the legs, and there was something stuck on the feet, but that fell off. It's starting to fall apart a bit, is this doll. So we've then got a tiny little denim skirt, and a little belt, which the belt was actually around the top part, and then like a little star, colourful star top. So, and then, so during this workshop, some of the people were stitching, they had the needles out and they were stitching, but I chose not to do that. I call me lazy, fair enough, but I use safety pins to pin mine to it. And that's fallen off. The clothes that are then on top is this fur coat. So the fur coat was really representing that wild, worthy woman that was like in the cave doing all of these kind of drumming and chanting and singing and dancing and art and leading and helping people. And it was just that message that I need to be around those things. I don't always need to be leading, but the leading part was significant. So I've got all of these necklaces and there's a shell. Some of these things had a real sort of grounded experience. On the back, I stuck on an owl, and that was embodying maybe some of my childhood experiences. I was in the brownies, so it's embodying some of that. And also I had an owl collection. So it's about being the wise owl and being like that, being a message for me to like tap into wisdom and tap into inner truth, tap into those things. And then if I were to talk about the underneath part, underneath the blanket and everything, we've got the clothes that I was talking about before, what they represent and what I wanted them to represent, and what I felt compelled to represent really was my teenage self. So when I was a teenager, I used to wear sort of, just think back to the 90s, I used to wear like denim, tie-dye, I'd have stripy tights, I'd dye my hair. I'm sure, like, you can imagine, I'd have Doc Martens, all of that. Doc Martens, I'd do Doc Martens, stripy tights, denim shorts, tie-dye t-shirt, denim shirt over the top, sort of thing. So that was the energy of it. And this is like why I've got this little denim skirt here. And that's kind of, whilst it's like quite a little cute doll, it's actually quite solid and grounded. At the top of the head of this doll, this fell apart, unfortunately. Although actually I'm not sure how fortunate it is. So at the top there was a cardboard tube with a load of feathers sticking out. And there's a real like power of I'm a badass sort of message. And incidentally, the week between the past life meditation and the doll workshop, I went to another event that was also a self-development event. And that was another step with this. And that was where we were talking about business, and we were talking about like combining subconscious mind and working through limiting beliefs at the same time as working on strategy. So that was about unleashing your inner badass. So this was about embodying my inner badass, and just all of it's combined. So this top bit at the top that's fallen off is maybe like when I was making it, that was maybe about that. And what I wanted to do is to really embellish this. So at one point I'd made a face, I'd carved with the clay a face that looked like a real human face, but then I couldn't quite get the face looking right. And I suppose that's maybe representative of my external face, how I'm visible to other people, compared to like, and that being something to not quite being there or certain about how I'm showing up to other people, and needing to maybe show up differently to different people, versus what's on the inside is rock solid, and that's who I am to the core, that creative me, just being me. So actually the fact that some of these beads that have pressed into it instead of having a face have come off, and the fact that the cardboard tube and the feathers have come off, highlights to me that concept of change and transformation, and a bit like a snake or a snail, like shedding its skin or moving to a new shell, that actually we, and fitting in with the past life ideas and the concept of that, going through into a new body, keeping the same soul but going into a new body and stepping through transitionally in life. We have all these different transitions, developmental milestones, including where your hand in the air if you're around perimenopause, that perimenopause stage. So where the thing about perimenopause is that we often talk about it, so many other transitional points in life as well, but we often talk about it in terms of hormones and the physical side. But what I'm really aware of and really conscious of is the psychological side and how it fits in with sort of our identity, how we see ourselves, whether we see ourselves as different to how we should see ourselves. Somebody described perimenopause a bit like the ripping a plaster off, and then all of these different things, like you reveal yourself. And in some ways, having that plaster ripped off is massively challenging. So the emotional side of perimenopause is really, really challenging, where anxiety, self-doubt, lack of confidence, low mood, lack of sleep, all of those things, as well as a lack of the changes hormonally, the physical changes, those sort of things really, really impact on who we are as a person. But then part of the plaster being ripped off, and what I like to kind of consider to be more of an empowering experience, is that what can happen is that the plaster being ripped off, and us as being at a stage of questioning who we are and questioning our life. And this isn't just women in perimenopause, it's just people generally at different times of life. Happens with teenagers as well, happens with men, happens anybody in transitions, especially say if there's been a bereavement or something like that. Anytime that there's been some sort of shift in your life where you're having to take stock and review and question things, that can take us into a few different directions. And what it's done for me is I've gone through that mush stage where I felt really rubbish and felt like loads of self-doubt and felt lots of apathy and felt really down, lots of anxiety, and come out the other side feeling empowered and feeling like, right, actually there's an urgency to do this, to feel grounded, to get my emotions in check, because knowing, like, having a now I can't find my words, so that's another perimenopause thing. A re-energizing and reigniting my purpose. So that was the message from the past. And to link back to the present moment, and linking back to what I'm doing at the moment, I'm on a mission really to make the world a more creative place, to help people to be able to express themselves more freely, more authentically, feel safe to be able to kind of be in their own skins. And sometimes the challenges are more systemic, which of course there's loads of challenges out in the world at the moment, like affecting how people see themselves and how people feel in society. But what goes on internally, and people feeling encouraged to express themselves through art and through creativity, is such a really important thing for me. So now, with all of this message from my past life and with all of the different things that I've been doing, I am determined to make sure that I can fulfill this mission, really. It feels a little bit like calling it a mission. Yes, it's a mission. So if you want to get involved, if you want to get part of my creative crew, then at the moment there's some different things going on. So the main thing that I'm speaking about at the moment, and that's going on at the moment, is the Creative Flow program. So this is a 4-month program designed to expand your creativity, really connect with your true self, like who you are at the core, and help you go through, overcome blocks, step past, help you to regulate emotions, understand about your nervous system, how that responds to different stresses and in different ways. And there's types of art activities that can help it, whether you're feeling really stressed and anxious, activated, or whether you're feeling more flat, maybe a bit frozen. So that's the Creative Flow program, and everybody gets a one-to-one session with me as part of that, because I'd like it to be something that is really meaningful for you and something that you can really get something out. So we really deep dive, and that one-to-one helps you to really kickstart with things. So if you are curious about the Creative Flow program and you want to learn more, then check out the details in the description of this. And if you have any questions, let me know. I also have a newsletter that I would encourage you to sign up to, because emails go out that have all that information as well. And it might be that you want to send me a message on my socials or wherever it is that you've found this from. But the whole point of this is that I am determined every single time I help even just one person, then that is fulfilling my mission. So I had a comment the other day that says, "Oh, actually, you've really inspired me to paint." It's like mission accomplished. And I'm going to actually make like a little graph paper and tick off every time I feel that there's been a step towards this mission and to fulfill this mission. So if you are wanting to find out more, get in touch. If you have any questions or comments about this conversation, this reflection, I suppose, let me know and we can have a little chat. And I will see you again soon. Right, take care. Bye, bye, bye.